Okay, so during my first 100 hours in Path of Exile, I never even got to Act 5. And if you know anything about the game, there are 10 acts in the game, so I never even got halfway through over my first 100 hours of the game. And I was kind of sharing this in general chat in the game, and some dude responded to me and he was like, "You must be mentally handicapped to not be able to get through the campaign during the first 100 hours." And I was just taken aback. I was like, "Okay, what am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me? Why am I not able to do this?" And granted, that was with a lot of characters. That wasn't just one character. So what would happen is I'd make a character and then it would start off without that much complexity. You know, you had just a couple sockets, and I'll explain what that means in a second, but the complexity was low. You didn't have that many skills you had to deal with. The monsters were relatively easy, and then the further along you got, the more complicated things became. And I hit a point where there'd be a point of complexity where I'm like, do I really want to deal with all these skills? There's like, first I had 2 buttons I had to press, and now I have 6 buttons I have to press, and I got overwhelmed with all of the complexities of the different currencies. I'm like, and so then I'd start over. And then I'd repeat this process over and over again. And so I'm like, okay, this has to stop. And so I ended up distilling the top 5 mistakes that new players make when they're trying to get in Path of Exile. And these are the same 5 mistakes that I made myself while getting into this game. And the thing about teaching this game in general to people is that there's so much to learn, and it's so easy to get bombarded with information that you don't really know what's really, really important and what you don't necessarily have to learn right away. You can't really separate the wheat from the chaff, and what's hard to do is separate the noise from the signal. And I have an example of this. When I was in college, I got really into bodybuilding. And because I didn't understand that 20% of my effort will result in 80% of the results, I put in 100% of effort for 100% of the results. And what that entails is I'm doing 3.5 hour workouts. I'm doing 2.5 hours, 3 hours of meal prep every single day. And because I'm working out so much more than I needed to get the results I needed to see, then that meant I would overtrain, and then I'd have to spend a lot of hours a day recovering. And so if you add all this up, I'm basically bodybuilding as a hobby full time. Like, it took that much time because I didn't know what was really important that I really had to focus on to really see results, and what was all the extra stuff, what was all the fluff. And I feel like this problem like really does exist in Path of Exiles, especially for beginners. And so what ended up happening was then I had to worry about new things in my life. You know, you had to start a career, and you know, college doesn't last forever. And so then because I put in so much effort into this one thing, I couldn't manage it with a bunch of other things. And that's why it's so important, and to not feel overwhelmed in Path of Exile, to really focus in when you're just starting out on the stuff that really matters, the things that you can remember, that you can implement, that you can understand, that'll make you have a situation where you're enjoying the game the most and you're getting the most results for the least, right? Okay, so I really distilled it down into 5 things you don't want to do. We're going to take a subtractive approach. Instead of saying you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, we're going to talk about the 5 things that you don't want to do that I did that slowed me down and made things harder for me. Okay, so the first thing, you don't want to pick up everything that drops. Trust me, because there are so many things that drop in this game. So what you can do is you can get a thing called a filter blade, or I'm sorry, it's called an item filter. And I'm gonna link in the description a link of this website called FilterBlade, XYZ. And you can go here and you could download something called an item filter, and you could put that in the game. And what that will do is all of the items that just don't matter, that you just don't need to pick up, that are junk items practically, they just won't show up for you in game. And there are a ton of guides on the internet on how to install the filter. If it doesn't come intuitively to you, you can just Google it. You can just search on YouTube how to install Filter Blade in Path of Exile. And once you do that, it will save you so much headache and so much tedium going through and looking through every single item to see what's worth picking up and what's not worth picking up. And that'll make the game a lot faster for you and a lot less of a headache, especially starting out. And to kind of piggyback on that point, not only do you not want to pick up everything that drops, you don't want to examine every item you see. Every item you see for stats. And so once you do have your item filter, and you do see items that drop, the ones that are relevant to show you, that the filter deems relevant to show you, you don't have to go through and really compare tit for tat all of the pieces that you're wearing and all of the pieces that are dropping. For example, if you're wearing a chest piece and the chest piece has like, I don't know, 10 dexterity and an item drops and the item has, I don't know, let's say 13 intelligence, you don't have to sit there and really compare the two and try to decide which one's better for you all the time, especially up front. This is not something that needs to be done. And it will really slow you down and it will really make the game more tedious. And so what you actually do want to do, instead of worrying about the specific stats on items and on gear when you're starting out, is you just want to focus on two things: the sockets on gear and the links between them. And if you're brand new to the game and you don't know what I'm talking about, you have skills in the game. These are your attacks. And you have support skills that basically make your skills stronger. And what's unique about Path of Exile is you don't get skills from leveling up. You don't get skills from a trainer. The way you get skills in this game is you get a little jewel called a gem. And once you get a gem, you have to equip the gem. And the gem represents the skill. And I'll show you all these visuals on the screen. You'll have a piece of gear, and it'll have these circles, these empty circles. And these circles are sockets. And once you find a gem or you get a gem from a vendor or an NPC, you then take that gem and you put it in your socket. And then that allows you to use that attack. And then you can use support gems, which look just like the skill gems. And you could also put those in your gear pieces, your chest, your boots, whatever. And it'll make the skill gems stronger. Okay. And different skills have different colored gems. So, for example, you could have a really heavy attack where you're taking a big sword and you're just smacking down enemies, and that could be represented by a red gem. Or you could be firing a bunch of arrows at once with a bow, and that would be represented with a green gem. And that's why you see on this piece of gear here that I'm going to show on the screen that different sockets come with different colors. So you put a red gem in a red socket, you put a green gem in a green socket, so on and so forth. And you see that there's a link between here, and this link means that these gems can work together. Okay, so with that out of the way, that's what you really want to focus on. You really want to focus on you having enough sockets and enough links. And if you're following a build guide, it's going to say you want to use from level 1 to level 12, you want to use these gems. And so you just got to make sure that the gear you have has enough space and links for the gems that it's going to require you to have. So as you're going through the campaign and you're killing mobs, which are practically just enemy NPCs, and they're dropping gear, try to find gear that has the sockets and links that you need. That's it. And there are ways in the game to add sockets and stuff. I'm not going to get into that in this video. It'll become more apparent once you get started with the game. So there is one small exception to this rule. And the small exception to this rule is life and resists. So the game gets exponentially harder as you go through it. Monsters get much harder the further you get through. And so you're going to want to not die in one hit. And so you're going to want to get a life. So on your gear, if you do see something that has life, give that priority over almost everything else. And if you see that it has a resist, and there's really 3 resists. There's lightning resist, cold resist, and fire resist. And it's going to be called resistance. And if any piece of your gear says 10% fire resistance or 12% cold resistance, you do want to prioritize those. So you want to prioritize resists and life. Everything else, don't worry about besides sockets and links. That will make your life so much easier, because when you go and sell to a vendor, you don't have to sit here and be like, do I sell this? Do I keep this? Just get rid of it. If it doesn't have the sockets and links you need, doesn't have life and resist throughout the campaign, sell. Like, you don't have to sit there and get overwhelmed, like comparing every piece of gear with every other piece of gear every time they drop. It's just too much, and it'll just slow you down, and you don't need to do it. This is really what you need to do. This will really move the needle for you. Now, I do want to say a quick disclaimer. All 5 of these things that you don't want to do when you're starting, you can break these rules after you have much more experience in the game. After you've played several leagues and you really, really know, how to play the game really well, then you can find the exceptions to the rule. But when you're starting out, just follow the rules. Just follow, and these are some principles. These are the 5 principles that I think are going to make the most benefit for you, that are going to make the most impact. Okay. So number 1, pick up everything that drops. You don't have to pick up everything that drops. You could use an item filter from FILTERBLADE. Number 2, You don't want to examine every item. You don't need to do that. Just focus on getting the sockets you need with the links that you need, and focus on life and resist. Another thing too, there is a resistance called chaos resist. Don't even worry about it until the campaign is over. Just cold resist, lightning resist, fire resist. That's it. Okay. Third thing is you don't want to kill every mob. And so when I first started the game, I thought everything that came at me, I just had to kill. And that's just from experience having played other games, such as World of Warcraft. In that game, if you're running through a map, you're running through some elven forest or whatever, and you have a bunch of monsters following you, they can kill you if you don't kill them first. That's rarely the case in this game. You can just zoom past things, you don't have to worry about it. And in Path of Exile, every map that you can find yourself in has an enemy level. And you can see that enemy level in the top right of your screen. And you want your level to be about the same level as that level, as the enemy level. And if it's way further, if let's say you're level 14 and the enemy level on that map is level 10, then you don't have to kill them. Just go right past them. Now, there are some things I want to say about that as well. Really experienced people play this game will underlevel just for the sake of speed, so they can go faster. So in a level 10 map, they might end up being level 7, and that's okay with them, and they'll still speed through. And then once they get to a map that has level 15 monsters, they might be comfortable at level 12. If they're level 11, they will kill mobs until they are level 12, and then they'll proceed into the next area. And there is no problem with overleveling either. If you want to overlevel, if you want to be level 12 in a level 10 map, you can do that. It's not going to hurt, but it will slow you down, and it's not something that you have to do. So that will definitely make your experience better as well. Now, next thing I want to mention is that you don't want to use portal scrolls. So you will learn very early in the game that there are two types of scrolls. There are wisdom scrolls and there are portal scrolls. And you will see these literally within your first 30 minutes of playing the game, maybe even your first 5 minutes of playing the game. And don't worry about what wisdom scrolls do. You will learn that very early and very quickly and very easily. Now, portal scrolls also sound pretty intuitive. What a portal scroll does is you click on the portal scroll, it opens a portal. Once you open a portal, you can click the portal. Once you click the portal, it teleports you to the nearest town. Okay. You don't have to do that. You don't have to waste your scroll. If you're getting these scrolls and you're getting them from killing monsters, literally you can just exit the character screen, you could log out, and then when you come back in, you're at the main town. You don't have to waste your scroll. And instead, what you can do is you can then go to any NPC, or you can go to any vendor, and you can trade one portal scroll and you'll get a scroll of wisdom. That way you end up with more stuff that you didn't have to waste. The only exception to this is you would want to use a portal scroll if you want to take the portal, go to the main town. The portal will stay in the town. You can go back to the portal, click it, and you'll end up exactly where you started. The game has a really good built-in teleportation system, so it doesn't really matter that much, but if you want to end up in the exact same location where you portaled out of, you want to go right back there, then this is the only time you need to use a portal scroll. But if you're just trying to get back to town, don't gotta worry about it. Just log out, and you're back in town, and you can use the teleport system to get to the same zone that you were in before you logged out. Easy. Okay. Now, the fifth thing that you don't need to, or you don't want to do, is you don't want to use the shift key. Out of these 5, this one is the one that's left preference, but I strongly recommend what you do is not use this key. In the game, by default, the shift key, what it does is it will stop you in your tracks. And so the game is click to move. And so if you are holding down left click to move in a specific direction, and then you hold the shift key, what will happen is your character will stop moving right there, and they will just start doing their auto attack. You don't want to do that because it makes the game feel janky. It makes the game feel stuttery. Because if you're moving in a direction, let's say you're moving right, and you're holding down on your left click, and a mob comes up and crosses your mouse button, your character will not continue to just run past them. It'll stop at the mob and it'll start attacking them. And your intention when you're moving around with your left button on your mouse is to move. It's not to just keep stopping every time you stop at a monster. And so what you're going to want to do is you're gonna want to bind your left click button to move, just to walk only. By default, it's set to auto attack. Set it to move, and then you could use all your other buttons for your attacks. And what you can do once you're at that point is, if you right click any of your skills that are binded, you will see that there is an option to always stop moving while attacking. This will make the game feel so much better for you. It won't feel janky, and it will make your experience so much better going through. Okay, now I do have a bonus. And the last thing you don't want to do, is you don't need to go through it alone. There's a really good content creator on YouTube named ZIZARAN. He's really good at the game. He has over 23,000 hours played in the game. He's been making content for years. And he provides two main avenues for you to learn the game. The first avenue that he's been doing for a while is called Path of Exile University. And what this will entail is a playlist of videos, each usually about an hour long or longer, that will kind of go through the game in a PowerPoint style presentation and from a theoretical perspective, kind of tell you what the game's about and how to play the game. More recently, a couple months ago, he did a video called Play With Me for Beginners, or a Let's Play for Beginners. I'll link it in the description. That video is about 8 hours long. And what it is he will play through the campaign every moment of the way, from beginning to end. And he will go into long detail, and he'll give descriptions on everything he's doing while he's playing. And his intention with that is you play alongside of him. So if you have two monitors, on one monitor you have the game, and the second monitor you have him and his 8-hour video, or you could put it up on your phone or whatever. And this is more so for people who like to learn by doing, not necessarily by studying, or not necessarily by listening to a presentation. I'm one of these people. I don't learn best by presentations or by PowerPoints. I like to do things and learn by doing them. And so to have someone step by step through the way kind of help you understand the game, I found is so beneficial. And I'm so glad he did this. It's a long video, for sure. But it is a helpful one. Absolutely. So I'm going to link that in the description. And so those are the 5 things you don't want to do. If you do these 5 things, you don't really have to worry about much else. This is the 20% of the stuff that will get you 80% of the results when you're just starting out. And that's it for this video. You know what to do. Every content creator says it. If you like it, and you'll see you in the next one. Peace.